Yo, it's Joe, and welcome to another video, and we're going to be reacting to Between the Sheets with Matthew Mercer. Let's get into this, man. Let's see what Matt's story is about, man.
Hello and welcome. On tonight's episode, I sit down for a dark and stormy with Matthew Mercer. We discuss everything from how
Dark and
RPGs helped him
stormy,
find
huh?
his identity,
that a
his
drink?
cosplay years,
I don't
how he
drink.
almost had a career in art, and the legacy he hopes he's leaving behind. All that and more tonight on Between the Sheets.
I must say, Brian is looking pretty snazzy. Must say. Must say. Ba-da-da-da. Alright, okay.
Matthew
whatever.
Mercer. Thank you for joining me.
Matt's looking
Thank you
pretty
for having
snazzy.
me,
too. I
Matt.
like
We've
that, like the
arrived.
little bracelet he's got on.
Cheers,
Indeed.
my friend.
Cheers, indeed.
What are we drinking
Oh,
today?
bro.
This
He's got the
delicious,
accessories, man. He's
This is
accessory out.
dark and stormy, nothing too fancy. Like me, this is my one good outfit.
your one good outfit.
my semi-fancy appearance. So
When we talked about what you wanted to drink for this episode, this came up. How come? You really like this drink?
I like it. I'm more of a rum drinker when I do drink, and I don't know. I tend to like things that are sweet. I grew up being called a girly
Same.
drinker, which makes no sense.
Same. Listen, dude. We're not gonna sit here, okay? Let's put all this macho man bravado, drinking shit. Let's put that aside. You trying to tell me that you're gonna be opposed to a sweeter tasting drink that's gonna taste like juice or soda or something? Come on, guys. Come on. Let's not kid ourselves. I don't like to drink really because I don't like the taste of alcohol. But I will drink a sweeter drink because it tastes good. We're not gonna act. Listen, okay. We're not gonna act like that's just not the better option. Why would you want to taste something that doesn't taste as like? Why would you want something that doesn't taste as good? You can't say it's because you want to get more of a buzz or something. Because there are some sweet drinks out there, some tasty drinks out there that'll get you messed up. So, yeah, man. Normalize drinking some sweet shit, man. The actual good tasting stuff. I'm just saying, bro. I never understood like there's this sweet drink here, but I'm gonna have this hard alcohol or beer even that doesn't like it's like why that's me. I don't know. I'm trying to enjoy it. So, I don't know what y'all talk about.
It's because I know guys who drink sweeter cocktails more than ladies.
Yeah, I love a good lemon drop every once in a while.
right.
Yeah.
I like this. It's simple.
I don't drink much, but when I do, it's gonna be sweet. Whatever it is. I'll tell whoever it is, like, yo, whatever you bring me, if they're like, you want a drink? Sure, man, whatever it is, just make sure it's sweet.
It's easy to order. Not too many bartenders, ask you, wait, how's that made?
Right.
So dark
Like
and
a good
stormy.
go-to.
And it has a
You gotta take that
it
into
has a name that has mystery and intrigue, and
Into
you
the
sound
memory
cool when you
bank.
go up and order one.
Sure. Yeah. If you're somebody else, maybe. Can I get a dark and stormy, please?
Could I please have a dark and stormy?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate to my approach to any bar, really. But I guess the name does help too. I'm very much a cloudy, rainy weather person. I love gray skies. I love when it's like a heavy downpour outside. So I guess the name has an allure to me as well.
Do you feel more creative
It does
in that
sound
environment?
pretty
I do.
badass.
I do.
dark
Rather
and
than when it's
stormy.
hot and you want to be outdoors and like doing stuff at the beach. I don't go to the beach.
How do you go out? I don't go outdoors,
I don't
so
go to
I'm not
the
really
beach.
connecting with you. on
Yeah,
this
I
one.
don't go to the
It's a
beach.
bad start to this interview already.
I'm just trying to be relatable
Yeah, I
to
don't go to
all
the
of our
beach either,
beach
dude.
bum
It's like, what's
fans
the
out there.
point?
Yeah. For some reason,
There's sand, it's coarse, and it gets everywhere. You know what I mean? It's like, why would I wanna do that? It's uncomfortable. I understand if you're going there to like, I don't know, get in the water maybe or get a tan. I guess it's just, I don't know. I feel like the beach is overhyped. That's just me.
like cloudy, rainy weather, the sound of rain outside has always been a very inspiring atmosphere to me. To the point where now, I go to sleep almost every night with the sound of rain, like on my Spotify and repeat, just to
Yo,
kinda
I
help
do
me
that
get
too.
quick and easy rest.
I need like some sort of white noise to help me fall asleep, whether it be a fan, whether it be
You
a
grew up
sound of
Matthew
rain,
Miller.
something.
Yes.
As many people know.
Matthew Miller, really?
There's probably a billion Matthew Millers, which is part of why you had to change your name,
That's
right?
exactly why, yeah.
Oh,
when
wow,
I joined the Screen Actors Guild years ago, there were 17 Matt Millers at the time, and there's plenty more now since. And Mercer was my family name a few generations back, and I figured it was close enough to where if I heard it out loud, my ear would still pick it up, and I'd register it as possibly being referring to me. Yeah, and it sounded a little cooler to me than Miller did.
Yeah, it's cool.
Maybe because
It
I was
is
just
a
around
pretty
it my
cool
whole life.
name.
When do you know why your family changed the name a few generations back?
I think it was less of a change the name more than they married into a Miller
Right.
individual, and that thread just sparked
Individual.
off and went in our direction, and so Miller stuck.
What's your heritage?
My heritage, from what I've been able to glean from previous family members' research and the wonders of 23andMe, mostly Irish and Scottish, UK, like just right in that UK Isle circuit there. Primarily Scottish. And
Scottish.
a lot of my friends who've gone back looking into their heritage have been excited to find out that they came from this majestic clan or this, family that, up on the North Shore, they have this great castle and all these great things they can look forward to visiting for their family bloodline and have all this mystique about their past. My family just stole horses. They were just a bunch of thieves, and that's about as cool as it got. And to the furthest back we could go, it ended there, which leads me to believe they just lived in mud. And when they went like, let's steal a horse, and that's where it all took off. That's where this began.
But then they probably, what if they became the people that started the Kentucky Derby?
Then I'd.
You never know.
I feel like I should be, get a nice hat at least.
I was just gonna say, how do I not get any of the hat inheritance with the Kentucky Derby?
I'm gonna look into this. I'm gonna go ahead and
We'll find out.
Yeah, I'll go into Ancestry.com and see just how many hats there are waiting for me.
I would love it if you found out you were the heir to something like that, and then you just walked away from all of this because you got like all this.
Sorry
money.
guys, I got that cool hat money.
Everybody goes, he's not in this for the money. He's in this for the story, and the
hats.
community, all this stuff. And then the second you win the lottery or you find out that you come from money, you're like, I'm out. Nobody ever hears from me.
Yeah, right.
To be fair, my lifelong journey to try and find a hat that fits me and doesn't look ridiculous, I think should end somewhere like that.
Hats are tough for you.
Yeah,
We try to put them. We try to
yeah?
put you in hats when we go places so that we can, get to TGI Fridays without, getting.
Or just try to,
one recourse.
Beanies look
try to get something on there, to help kind of gauge what's gonna look good, right?
great on you though, because you
That
get the
I
little
discovered.
hair come out of the bottom and it just looks cool. You know?
Yeah, and embrace that high school stoner I never was.
Yeah, I always look like I'm gonna knock over a check cashing place when I wear a beanie.
Yeah, not just the beanie, but more
in
so.
general?
It increases the percentage.
Hey man, beanies are the go-to, man.
So where'd you grow up?
Originally, I grew up in Florida, like Central Florida. My parents were both pseudo-creatives. Mom was a writer. My dad was a musician. My grandmother had worked for years with, ironically, Burt Reynolds, if you've been following
Oh,
Critical
really?
Role. Like, I grew up with a weird, kind of adjacent Burt Reynolds theme. So she worked with him on a number of films and was the head of his
That's so
production
cool,
studio,
wow.
Reynolds Productions.
Whoa.
And she ran the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater in Jupiter, Florida, for a number of years, in which my father did audio there. My mom was one of the was an apprentice for a while, and then was a producer. That's where she met Darren DePaul. That's where Darren
right,
DePaul met my parents and my grandmother before I was born.
I don't know who
and
that
that was
is.
a surreal kind of comeback in
Darren
recent
DePaul.
years.
I
as we
remember
became
talking about that
friends.
when he came on the show and just how serendipitous that whole thing was.
was the craziest
'cause
thing.
He
I'm-
played D&D with you.
I guess I gotta see the
yeah,
face.
and he
I
posted
don't
a
know by
picture on
name.
Twitter one day of like, this is me in the apprenticeship program, and my mom was in the picture, and it was just like, what is going on?
What a weird small world.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's where it started. So lived in Central Florida, lived in kind of what was essentially West Palm Beach, the poorer side of West Palm Beach, because there's two sides to it. There's the ridiculously affluent,
Where the people retire and they want to go like
Yeah.
own a condo and spend. Yeah.
and call the police on people that
On
don't look like
people.
themselves.
Yeah.
We lived on the other side of the tracks, and my parents definitely kind of didn't have a lot of money, and they worked really hard just to ensure that me and my brother had.
Which one is Matt? Shoot. I'm gonna go with the one with the blue. I'm gonna go with the one with the blue shirt on. But it's funny because he does look like his parents. You can definitely tell the resemblance.
Had a really, really good upbringing, so I'm very thankful for that. But we just moved from apartment to apartment almost
He's got like
every
his
year.
dad's
Kind of very
like eyes kind
dramatic
of.
life, especially in Florida in those early years. And lived there until I was about 8.
And then you moved to LA.
My mother was hired on as a writer for Burt Reynolds Productions. My grandmother at the time was head of his production company called Burt Reynolds Productions.
That's so cool, man, that their
astute
family
title.
was like in the
Mhm.
business.
To work on Evening Shade, which was a show that he was doing in the early 90s. And that was enough for my family to just uproot and head to the West Coast. There wasn't a whole lot going for us in Florida. We'd kind of had not a lot of good financial prospects for a long time, and I think my family was looking forward to a new start. So we just did a little over a 2-week road trip across the U.S. in our van.
Your parents and you and your brother?
Yeah.
Wow.
The little U-Haul tractor behind us, what little we took with us, and made our way out to California.
What kind of writing did your mom do? What kind of music did your dad do?
My mom, she did mainly story writing, scripts, a little bit of kind of playwriting, tinkering, but nothing that really took off. And she wrote a few episodes for Evening Shade and did some other work here and there. Unfortunately, a lot of the projects she worked on didn't quite come to fruition in the later years, and there are reasons beyond her control for that. My dad, all kinds of music. He raised me on Beatles and Pink Floyd and
Some
Moody
classic,
Blues,
man, some
Al Parsons
classic rock.
Project, everything in that realm of music. So that was very much his specialty. But he played plenty of instruments, and growing up, every Christmas was him giving me some sort of instrument that he could afford, and me messing with it for a week and then going nah, and then giving it to my brother, and then he would master it.
But
so he
do
became a
you-
musician too.
Wow.
Do you know any
I was that one who
instrument?
couldn't quite find the interest of picking up an instrument.
You appreciate music.
Oh,
a
very
lot,
much so.
But
Oh,
just
yeah.
the act of trying to get in and learn how to play it, it just didn't capture
Love
you.
music.
And it's kind of frustrating in hindsight, because I would love to have had that skill, and I appreciate what musicians do, and to this day, my dad's still a busker, for a living in Hawaii. So like I really have a love for people that create music, but just wasn't something I think that was in the cards for me, unfortunately.
It's so crazy, like, again, like, because I appreciate musicians too and what they do, especially people that play instruments, because it's like there's like a whole other part of your brain that's working. Like, the wires would so easily cross for me trying to play an instrument, let's say trying to play an instrument while singing, or trying to play an instrument while focused on anything else. I gotta focus on the notes. If I'm playing the drums, if I'm playing the guitar, playing the piano, I've gotta focus on the notes and nothing else. If anything else would get in my head, it'd be over. I'd fail. That's if I could even do it, just focusing on the notes to begin with. You know what I mean? It's tough, man. There's a lot that goes into that. It takes a lot of brain power, a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, and a great ability to be able to like multitask. Because like it reminds me of like the thing where like I can't even do it right now if you were to ask me, but you tap your head and you rub your, you know what I'm saying, rub your belly or something like that. It's one of those things where it's like I just can't do it. Like the wires just cross and it's just not it doesn't work out. So mad respect to artists like that.
What did growing up without a lot, those first 8 years in Florida and switching apartments so much and everything, what did growing up on the the poorer side of things teach you?
It taught me to appreciate the things that you have, most definitely, and to earn the few things that you did manage to get. My parents were very good about making sure that if there's something we wanted as kids, we had to earn it by keeping things clean, which is a good way of also mitigating what they could afford to get us. They're like,
Right.
well, we would love to get that, but if you keep your stuff, your room clean for the next 6 months, you'll get that little talking Roger Rabbit doll. So yeah, that definitely. I'm thankful because it instilled appreciation for things like that and for what you have. It meant moving a lot of schools. So in those younger years especially, it was different friend circles at almost every year, and kind of never really put my roots down with too many folk at that time. And then moving to Florida, I just lost track of everybody after that. So it's a completely clean slate coming out here.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you're so young when you moved, there's really no way to keep in touch with the friends that you did have at that time?
Not really. And
Yeah.
those years were awkward too, because I was a heavy stutterer at the time,
Right.
And that made it hard to
Really?
communicate. I had one of my good friends that I made at the time. This was like I'd segment my childhood by obsessions. Like during the Ninja Turtle phase,
Right.
one of my best friends was deaf, and because both of us kind of had difficulty in communication, we found a kinship there. And so me and him were just obsessed with Ninja Turtles.
Wow,
And we'd
that's-
draw and
that's so
watch the
cool,
shows
man.
together
That's
with action
wholesome.
figures and stuff. but yeah, then uprooting everything.
I'm
coming back
surprised
here was its own
what he
unique
did
adventure.
that
And
was able to help him
a
with
change of
his
gears.
speech.
I can imagine.
Speech
You
impediment.
mentioned that you had a stuttering problem growing up, and I've heard you talk about this a little bit. But how early did that start for you, to where you were like, this is kind of a thing, versus everybody doesn't talk like this?
I wasn't self-aware of it, I don't think, until I started going to school. You know, it was just how I talked, and I would fight through the catches.
Mm.
But it wasn't until I got to school and began to get teased about it, or I began to notice that other kids didn't have this. Even though my brother didn't stutter at all, I didn't really realize it until then. And my father, who was a heavy stutterer, and still, both of us still carry a hint of it. Him a little more than me. He immediately put me into speech therapy. He's like, I don't want you to go through what I went through in elementary school. So I went through years of speech therapy through early elementary school, helping me kind of realize. And I think what they realized is the brain was going too fast for the speech to catch up.
Right.
And so your thoughts would just be racing, and the mouth would eventually get caught up, and then you have to restart or kind of hold for a second to kind of bring your thoughts back and circle on what point you were trying to make. And we managed to increase my speech, which was great for stuttering, but it also meant that I talked really fast. And so there was a time where I got teased for talking way too quickly.
Oh, interesting.
And I think
putting my
that's
words
cool,
together,
dude.
and me and my friend Ian in middle school, we would kind of almost have our own language. We would both talk so quickly that my parents would joke that they had no idea what we were saying.
But you're like, I'm free now.
My dude Matt was speaking like he was Hispanic, but he just straight up speaking English that fast.
I have the tools to be able to talk. I'm gonna make up for all this sort of lost time where I wasn't able to communicate the way I wanted to.
Yeah, and it was funny. It was actually through
You
theater
give
later in life
Dominicans
that
a
I
run
learned
for their money,
to
I tell
have
you
to slow
what.
my speech down. Because it used to just be this smattering run of consonants and vowels that occasionally I'd have to repeat myself because people couldn't understand what I was saying.
It was so quick.
And when I get excited, I still get caught up in that speech pattern. But yeah, through theater and things like that later on helped me kind of slow down, be more conscious of my cadence, and be a much better public speaker than I think I ever would have been had I been let to continue my path.
Or to try and overcome it on your own.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, but you're grateful that your dad put you in the speech therapy.
Oh, very much so. Right. Very much so. It taught me a lot of just really good techniques about being self-aware of my speech, of learning how to verbalize ideas, and not feel bad about that impediment as I worked through it for many years.
It's something that you can't control. I mean, you weren't born going, I'm gonna talk differently than everybody else. So yeah, you just work through it.
Yeah, essentially. And becoming a voice actor was kind of a cool full circle to that experience, though it also means that when those few catches come up here and there in the booth, it's extra embarrassing, and I have to ask people to be patient. Certain words back to back will catch me. Remember is a big word.
Remember, right.
Like saying that in the middle of a sentence, I'll say, well, I remember, it'll come up like that.
Right.
Certain phrases I'll still get caught on and have to push through a little bit.
I mean, that's
but
just
thankfully
getting
they're fairly
tongue-tied,
minimal,
dude.
and
That
people are fairly
happens to
understanding.
everybody, I'd say you're pretty damn good, man. I'd say your speech is
Your brother
immaculate.
Andrew, older or younger?
Younger by 2 years.
What was your relationship like with him, being that you were the only two kids in the family and two boys?
And 2 boys, yeah. We were for most of our life, been very close, and still very close to this day. I'm really appreciative of having somebody to grow up with, so close to my age. Wasn't always the case in the younger years. There were definitely times where, as the older brother, I would terrorize. I had this new little toy that reacted to things I did. This was great, and there's videos of us, of me just like pushing him over once he started walking. And you get up and be confused as to why gravity is being such an asshole to him. And then you hear my dad behind the camera go like, Matt, no. I'd look back at the camera, push him over again. I was a little dick for those early years.
Yep, I understand.
But he got me back. There was one time, the parents tell us, where they heard me yelling and like screaming, and they ran upstairs thinking I hurt myself, and they found me face down on the ground, my brother on my back, holding my hair and hitting me with a ladle.
Nice.
And apparently that was the moment he snapped. And we were good after that. Apparently, we were fine. We had hit even keel.
Mutual respect at that point. Yeah, you guys understood that, like, okay, there is a give to this take.
Yeah, and from that point forward, I think we were very close. We shared a lot of our interests, especially in later years when he was kind of finding himself in high school. We shared a lot of music together. We always shared rooms for the most part, and I still love him dearly to this year. And even though he's like 4 inches taller than me. It's,
He is?
yeah, it's kind
And
of
I
bullshit.
hear he has a somewhat of a resemblance to me, probably a lot more handsome, but
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has some features
Definitely
that
has
Nah,
the
Brian,
Portland
you're
beard.
interesting.
you're a good looking dude, my
Yeah, 'cause
boy.
he's up in the Northwest,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he's up in there. So him, yeah, he's it's kind of unfair that I feel like the prototype, and he got the final height release version. But you know, it's fine.
So how tall is
Despite
Matt? I wonder.
the
look
teasing
that
and all
up.
the things you do to a
'Cause
sibling,
this guy's
and with a
even taller.
sibling,
You know, he seems like he's pretty tall.
were
but-
you the protective older brother throughout stuff in life with him?
I was in the later years.
In the later
it wasn't
years.
something I felt. We didn't feel there was much of a need for protection from other kids per se.
Right.
There were some rougher times where I think there was more of a taking him under my wing. He's, and I'm sorry if Andrew's watching this, but he was generally, believe it or not, the more sensitive of the two of us.
Really?
Especially
Ain't
in those
nothing
early
wrong with
years.
that, man.
And,
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
There were times, like in our middle school, where we were homeless for about, I think it was about 8 months or so. We were living out of motels and in our van, and he was very kind of having a hard time with that. So at that time, I kind of took him under my wing and reintroduced him to a lot of my interests and just kind of looked after him then. And then in high school, he definitely went through a number of years where he was trying to find himself. And went through a lot of different phases and cycling friends groups to a certain extent. And since he was 2 years younger than me, coming in at the same high school I was in, I felt protective of anything
Of
that
course.
got in his way.
Of course.
So, and being a person who was bullied through my own years as well, was wanting to stand up where I could. Not that I was an imposing figure, especially once he
Right.
grew taller than I
had
did.
a growth spurt, right?
Yeah.
He got the height. Yeah.
You were like, you better watch out. This guy could just keep
It's the
going.
same thing that
and
happened
then,
with me,
yeah,
like-
be unstoppable.
I'm a short guy, right? I'm 5'5", right? I have a younger brother who's 15 years younger than me, and this guy is huge. This guy he's taller than me. Not that it takes much, but yeah, dude, it's it's crazy when the little brother ain't so little anymore.
Well,
Yeah, but to this day, we have just this super long list of inside jokes from our childhood that we'll still text or call each other and just throw at each other just to mess up our day and have a good time. So I love him dearly.
outside of getting teased for your speech impediment, why would people bully you? For what reason?
I was a quieter kid when I was younger. When I wasn't around my family. When I was around my parents, I was a ham. But I was bullied because I was quiet, because I was had thick glasses for many years, and that was a natural, thing that people gravitated towards,
same.
and they just having power trips in early school years. Up until about middle school or so, I didn't have a lot of friends, partially because we were moving
You're transient.
so constantly.
Yeah, it's
so
hard,
I was kind
dude,
of
especially
playing solo, except for like a handful of
Being that
people
young.
that I clung to. And then, of course, as the body begins to change around adolescence, my hair became really greasy. I had an off and on like scalp infection thing through my childhood that I would go through a lot of medications for my scalp and my hair. And so I'd come back to my binder with the stuff like dye, dandruff, dork, and shit like that written on my stuff. Kids are
terrible.
They're terrible.
They're terrible.
So, and I was like just generally self-conscious of
kids.
myself, and have been from a very young age physically. It wasn't until later in life that I realized that I have like a fair amount of body dysmorphic disorder, where
Talk to me about that. What's that experience like?
yeah, I mentioned that a little bit last year on a stream.
I remember
we did
that,
a mental
yeah.
health day. But so it's a mental disorder where you essentially, no matter the situation for the most part, perceive yourself as a very unsightly, ugly, and just repulsive person. For me, it's physically based, and it's like I was the kid that the one of the scariest phrases I could hear were like pool party or beach party.
Because you'd be exposed and you would feel like everyone's gonna feel the same way about my body as I feel about my body.
And I was always the kid that wore the shirt. I never ever went shirtless at any of these events. I didn't feel comfortable. This is like back to, I must have been like 10, 11. Even then, like I just did not feel comfortable, and still largely don't really feel comfortable in my body most of the time. like finding ways to sit comfortably and it's a unique, subtle struggle in my life. But
A lot
What
of
has
people
that
go through
process
it though,
been like?
man.
Because with things that are um, a mental disorder or something that's outside of your control, how do you overcome that and push through? And it's not that the sign of overcoming it would be I don't wear a shirt to the beach anymore, because it's an
right,
internal struggle.
yeah, I still don't
So
do that.
yeah, exactly. Like that's not a sign that you are now free of this thing. But how did you manage it, and how did you process it and work through it, and how do you still do to
I'm
this
still
day?
working through it.
Yeah.
It's still a thing. And I will say living in LA doesn't make it easier. I'm surrounded by very, very pretty people on a daily basis.
And a very
And,
image conscious culture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely, and
on the
especially over there
billboards, it's
too.
everywhere.
everywhere. And so a lot of it is just being aware of it has been helpful. It was very hard in high school, especially in a social space where people are starting to come into their identity, and there is a definite social hierarchy that begins to develop. Um, I can't say I dealt with it well, meaning, well, I didn't externalize that there was a lot of self-loathing
Mm.
in those years that I just kind of internalized and didn't let anybody else see. Um, It's not easy, and
Yeah, that
it's
happens in high school, man. A lot of people
even to this
finding
to this
themselves,
day,
man, and
you know,
high school can be rough for a lot of people out there, man. And it's always unfortunate to hear, like, these people that are picked on or bullied, because it's like, dude, like, majority of the time these people, whether you want to call them nerds or whatever, however you want to say, whatever derogatory term you want to use, um, t- they're the ones who are successful and taking this thing seriously. Like, they should be looked at. They should be looked at like, damn, I want to be like that. I want to be smarter, or whatever. But I mean, not even that. Just not even on like the intellectual side. Just like physically, like to pick on people. It's just it sucks, man. It's crazy. You would think that we would have more sense at that age, like when we get to high school, but it's just a whole other animal where there's excuse me, where there's just more. You gain maturity in one aspect, and in others, it's like you're still at step one. It sucks. It's tough, but you know, it's part of growing up, I guess. Because I guess a lot of people that are acting in that way maliciously are still trying to find themselves. Just hopefully they realize when they get older, that's might not be the best way to live or to treat people.
I either try and rush past a mirror from going to the shower so I don't see myself, or if I do, I stop and obsess all the perceived imperfections and generally leave very angry with myself. Um, and it's just something you work with and you work through.
To hear that it's still something you work through, I'm sure is encouraging for people who maybe are younger and feel that way, because
hope so.
it's like, hey,
That's why it's good you're talking about it.
You can still get very far, and find healthy ways to work through that stuff. I feel like.
Yeah, and it's. I want to also specify this isn't me. The few times I've mentioned it, people are like, "Oh no, you're great, you look great." It's like
That,
none
that's,
none
I mean,
of that.
you don't need that.
I appreciate it, but that doesn't help either, because it's. I'm not looking for positive reinforcement. I'm not looking for people to tell me otherwise, because you can't. It's something that's internal that I just have to struggle through. And part of the reason since I've discovered the soft long vest and I wear them so often, I like it because it's a unique style to me, but I also like it because it kind of obscures my torso. It's like it's
Yeah.
actually it's a personal comfort thing where I feel like it's something I could wear where I don't have to constantly find a way to adjust when I'm seating, or where I have to figure out a way to where I don't look absolutely grotesque in public.
You can just be comfortable and then perform comfortably.
Yeah. And
We always thought those things activate the dungeon master powers. 'Cause it does seem, though, you can tell though when you have them on, you do feel you do come across like you're more free
more
and more
confident.
yourself and whatever else. And
And
if
I think that's
if
part
that's
of it,
what it
too.
does, then that's a tool.
yeah, it's finding those little things day to day that help me feel a little more comfortable. I've been trying to find time to work out more. That does seem to help a little bit, in dietary things, just for general energy level. Though I'm never really happy. But yeah, it's just a thing I work through, and it definitely made a lot of the early bullying in my life sting a lot more whenever it was an appearance-based insult. I do have I have a lot to thank my friend Ian Cho in middle school. I was the token white kid in a group of like East Indian, Pakistani, Korean, Japanese kids who were all just we found our common thread in video games and anime. And my friend Ian Cho was like my BFF and my ride or die friend through all middle school and early high school. He was this quiet little scrawny Korean kid who was secretly built like Bruce Lee and idolized him.
Oh, wow.
And I remember
that's
this one time
awesome.
on the bus, and I think it was 7th grade, where one kid who was been terrorizing me for a while sat in the seat behind us and kept like muttering shitty things over the side and punching the back of the seat
At you.
at me. And it got more and more intense. I just got quiet, and my friend Ian started telling him like, "Stop it, stop it." And the kid kind of looked him in the eyes and did one final heavy punch to the back, and so Ian just popped him right in the face. Kid got really quiet. Next day, came to school with a big old welt in his chin, and then challenged my friend Ian to a fight. And all of his friends were backing him up. Typical like chest beating.
Meet me behind the flagpole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 12. I'm gonna show you how much of a man I am. And I know Ian well enough. We've been taking Taekwondo and Hapkido for many years. That this was not gonna go well for the other kid. But,
How did it go?
oh, Ian destroyed him. Destroyed him.
We love you, Ian.
He was amazing. I'm sad I lost touch with him, but he definitely came to bat that one time, and he didn't bother us much after that. But yeah, it's interesting. Part of the reason I think voiceover was more my calling than on-camera stuff was because as much as I tried it and I've done some on-camera things, I've rarely ever watched my stuff back. Even in Critical Role, like I have a hard time going back and watching episodes we've already recorded unless I'm focusing on the players because I don't like seeing myself on camera. So it's a very weird kind of dichotomy of being somebody whose career has put them on some public stage and not wanting to be in some ways on that stage.
It's
So-
an interesting wrestle that you have to do internally. Do you think that some of that bullying and a lot of that treatment and some of those experiences drove you towards kind of living in a fantasy thing and acting out and being able to sort of be yourself or be someone else because of a lot of that stuff?
Very much so. I owe so much to who I am today, to being able to explore who I wanted to be in those spaces.
Who did you want to be in those spaces?
I was figuring it out, and I think I wanted to be someone who was more sure of themselves. I'm still working on that. I wanted to be somebody that could stand up for people that couldn't protect themselves.
Absolutely.
I wanted to be a problem solver and be useful. And these were all, these are all things that you didn't always have the opportunity, especially in those younger years, to experience and really resonate with. And I think, well, I loved, and I grew up playing video games and role-playing games. You can get an aspect of that through all those facets of digital media. But it was tabletop role-playing games that really allowed me to kind of build a persona and step into those shoes and try it on for a while and see what parts I liked, what parts I didn't. And then the next time kind of try something else that was maybe radically different or adjacent to that with a few tweaks and see if that was closer to who I, eventually wanted to be. Not only did those experiences kind of save me a lot of mental anguish in those years, but I think it helped open me up. It helped me become more confident in my speeching. Okay, case in point.
My
Well,
speeching.
we're also great.
We're also that too. Talk for a living.
Yeah, I know.
It helped me.
Some things come out fuckery. It just happens.
I know. It helped me kind of really embrace the idea of gifting storytelling to other people. I began to find comfort in stepping into characters more myself also. I think in some facet, there was trying to find out who I wanted to be, and there's some facet of knowing that while I was uncomfortable in being in this body, I was far more comfortable in being in the perceived body of these other characters, whether they be PCs
That's
and
pretty
PCs.
cool. I don't know
There
who
was
that
kind of a
is,
therapeutic
but
aspect
looks
of
cool.
that there for a long time.
Is there still to this day?
Maybe.
It's not as big of a
Maybe.
struggle, but
It's not as
still
big of a
there.
struggle, and I don't feel it's. I'm sure in some ways it's still a subtle tool, week to week, and I appreciate all these great friends that I get to play with that have been so supportive in my silly storytelling.
Oh man, yeah. I wonder, how did things change in your relationship to other people at school once you started playing RPGs and you were able to become more comfortable and your mind was being stretched and you were acting out different things? Did it change the way that were you more confident at school, or was it still like, I'm still sort of in this weird place, but when I escape to this other thing, I'm able to be this other person? Or was there
Yeah, like you
crossover there?
adapt
I was.
the persona.
I think my freshman year of high school, discovering RPGs and going into dance class actually both helped tremendously. I was the only guy in dance.
What kind of dance?
All kinds of. It was just basic
It was
dance.
dance,
It was
okay.
just dance.
Blanket.
And it was considered a PE credit, and I hated running. I hated PE, so it was my like little fuck yeah to the school system. I can do what I want.
More creative than running.
Very much so. And so it was me and just a bunch of really awesome ladies that,
Dude,
didn't
Matt's
tease
hair
me about
was
that and brought me in.
crazy.
And we did anything
Like in a
from
good
lyrical
way.
ballet and jazz dancing to
And, I
break
mean, look at it
dancing
now, man.
to. We ran the gamut over the next 2 years, and so that to me was very. It felt good because it was active, and as a person that doesn't like a lot of physical activity, it was a way that I could kind of still
Absolutely,
be
man.
active.
You gotta
but
find
not
what
feel
you
like I have
enjoy
no
doing
purpose
to
it. I
be
guess that's
active.
the thing about physical activity that bothered me was I had a hard time pushing myself to run and work out when there was no perceived narrative end or reason for it.
Right.
It just seemed it was like empty calories to me, and I've gotten
It's just
better over
better
the years in
to
dealing with
find
that,
something
but
you
that was
enjoy,
like
man.
a block for me for many years.
Well, and it probably felt like an invitation for ridicule.
Yeah.
Because you're there amongst all these people who are probably, more comfortable in their own skin than you were at the time.
Oh yeah, and when you're in a locker room of a bunch of boys in high school and you're putting on your jazz shoes and dance pants, you get called all sorts of terrible names. And at first it stung, but then it didn't at all because I was having a good time with good people, and the more people I got to meet, especially through theater, the more I realized that these insults didn't mean anything because there were wonderful people that that endure these things in arrows and wear it as a banner.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so yeah, like dance was really important to me, and it was through RPGs that I got into theater. I had no interest in being an
Really,
actor.
through
For being surrounded by
RPGs you got
entertainment,
into
with,
theater.
with like my parents and grandmother in the theater, and kind of growing up around actors to a certain extent, I had no interest, and everyone told me, "Don't be an actor." Everyone who was an actor was like, "Just don't do this." And
Why?
Because it's such a harsh
Such a fluid career.
and it just crushes so many people, and it takes a certain mindset to endure that and still persevere. And so very wise of
Takes a
them
lot of
to at
luck,
a young
too.
age be like, trust me, don't let this destroy you.
Have a trade, have a fallback, have a thing if you are going to pursue it. The things that
Exactly.
people always tell you
And
guys.
so I went into art. I went into illustration, and my whole upbringing was filling sketchbooks with comic book characters and creature designs and making my own little comics in the margins of tests I do at school. And I made money in middle school
Oh, nice. Man, I wish we could see
from
some
drawing
pictures.
kids pictures, of characters they wanted to see. And then in 8th grade, drawing nudie pictures for kids who had no access to the,
Nice.
to.
Do you have any of those left? I'll buy
Oh,
some. I'll pay you to do some nudie pictures.
Oh man, it was so bad because at that age, when you're 7 years old, you don't have a good sense of anatomy.
Yeah, you
so
probably
it's very.
you probably haven't spent a lot of time around too many naked
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Salvador Dali did like a Playboy piece. That's kind of what I did. But at the time, the internet hadn't quite emerged yet.
Right.
And so a lot of these kids were just like, "Can you draw boobies?" And I'm like, I think so.
I think
Let me
it-
just
yeah.
like
I
copy
think I
this
know what a
picture of
boob
Rogue
looks
from my X-Men comic and just
Yeah.
add what I think a nipple looks like on a lady. Sure, here you go. $20,
I'm
man.
really good
It's
at left
great.
boob, right boob's a little weird.
Yeah, it was a
for me,
little
but I'm getting there. Yeah.
But yeah, and I had a few lady friends that wanted me to draw, like a naked Wolverine, and I was like, well, this I know a little better. And it helped me fund my early days with Magic the Gathering. It helped
That's so funny,
Yeah.
I made some decent money, for a kid in middle school,
Like
drawing
a side hustle going on. there.
nude characters.
Absolutely, man. Gotta get your money, man.
It's interesting to me that you ended up on stage in theater dealing with the tornado of stuff that you were dealing with internally. It seems to me like the most terrifying place to be when you feel that way about your body, you feel that way about your voice, even though you had gone through, years of speech therapy at that point. I know why you ended up on the stage, but what was that like? Was doing theater a terrifying experience for you at first, and then you got more comfortable with it because of what was
Great
going on
question.
internally?
It was weirdly more free.
Hmm.
I had never thought to pursue it, and it was after school one day. It's my freshman year, and I was sketching in a sketchbook while I was waiting to be picked up from my parents. I usually had to wait about an hour and a half for my mom to come get me. And Mr. Gilpatrick, who was the theater teacher at my high school, kind of stopped and said, "What are you drawing?" And I think I was drawing some sort of monster. I was, heavily into D&D at the time.
Wolverine's
so I was
dick?
designing. would you like?
What do you think?
I call it Weapon X. So I showed him the sketch, and we just talked for a while. He just kind of saw this kid sitting there by himself and asked, "What's up?" The more we talked, he was like, "You ever thought about auditioning for we have a theater audition coming up soon? You should check it out." And I was like, it's not really my thing. I don't know. He's like, "Well, come on, just give it a shot."
Was it disinterest or was it fear?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
It was maybe a disinterest because it was something I never considered, and most of my life we kind of beaten in my head that it's something I should never
Yeah,
do.
it's something something you shouldn't do.
And then it was the idea of getting up on stage in front of a lot of kids and
With the
kind of
speech
putting myself out there
problem.
in a
Yeah.
very
Vulnerable.
I
vulnerable
can,
way.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But I was like, an audition can't hurt, and it was for The Crucible,
Wow.
and I read for Reverend Hale, and I ended up getting it, and I think it was partially a pity cast. After our conversation, he's like, I'll give this little kid his first chance at theater, and then throw me in Arthur Miller's Crucible. I mean, I guess
As
he's
a
little
freshman.
he's a little sadistic on his part, I'm sure, but weirdly, like the more rehearsals went, the more I felt comfortable once again stepping into somebody who wasn't myself, and finding a space there where I could
RPG,
not,
like you said, the
the
RPG.
times I was on stage in this costume,
aspect
reciting
got
these
him into
lines
it.
and interacting with the other performers on stage, I wasn't looking inward. I wasn't judging myself. I wasn't, focused on my discomfort, and that was very kind of unique and thrilling to me. And then I met a whole new group of friends through it, and it just kind of expanded.
Nice,
from there.
man. That's awesome.
So how long did you do theater in high school then?
I did it all the way to the end every year. Did a lot of musicals.
You're a great singer. You have a great singing voice.
Well, thank you.
Even though you're not, you said you didn't pick up on the art of playing instruments or, reading music or mastering in that way, you still developed a
It's
great singing voice.
the one instrument that I can do is the one that came with me. I thank my dad for that. Because he was a musician, me and my brother grew up with him singing harmonies on different Beatles songs at a young age and stuff. So I was always around music, and I guess singing was the one thing I could do, which is why I have such a love for karaoke, because it's like that and driving in the car are the two times that I get to express myself through song and not, feel like I'm showing off or anything dumb like that.
What kind of musicals did you do in high school? Do you remember any of them?
Oh, a lot of Rodgers and Hammerstein, which is terrible. South Pacific, Carousel. I got heavy into musicals though through it, like appreciation and interest, like Jekyll and Hyde. Scarlet Pimpernel is still one of my favorite musicals. But yeah, it's like, so all those years to me, like theater was an outlet for me, and through it I met a lot of my close friends, some of which I still talk to today through the drama club.
Nice.
But
Should bring him on
but
to,
it wasn't something I wanted to do
some
as a
critical
career
role,
by any
man.
means.
Touch base with him if they can.
My main focus was art, and so I spent my entire time doing all the art classes, going to studio art, doing the AP exam, getting, my 5 out of 5 on the AP exam. Was going into CalArts for their animation program. Wanted to do illustration and 2D, possibly 3D animation. And it was right after I graduated and was prepping to begin there that I began to have serious doubts, because I had all these people around me that were amazing artists that were going into the school, other artists that I was interfacing with that just had these incredible portfolios, and I just didn't stack up.
You didn't feel like you were at that level?
No, and I didn't know if I could get there. And the last thing I wanted to do was throw myself into a career that I wasn't competitive enough to kind of make a living at.
Wow.
And so I met with a few animators at the time who had worked on old Disney films, and through friends of my grandma's and stuff. And they all basically told me, like, why do you do art? And I'm like, well, because it's some form of self-expression. He's like, well, you understand that most of this job is drawing somebody else's character and somebody else's design under somebody else's supervision, exactly how they need it, 12 plus hours a day.
Dummy, yep.
And occasionally on your off time, you get to draw for yourself. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Did it feel like that would suck the passion and the love out of it for you, because it was going to become such a
somebody
daunting
else's
I
project.
felt like it would have, only because the people I talked to seemed to emphasize that.
that's what was going to happen.
And I've since met many animators and stuff that it's not the case. It's definitely work a lot of times, but they still are very proud of what they've done and they get to work on great projects and it's inspiring. But at the time, when I'm at that crux of my life being, do I jump into all of this, school debt that my parents definitely cannot afford?
Can't afford, right?
But to make this big jump, is this something that I want to do? And so I decided no, and I pulled out and got a job that summer doing game testing. And that was
Video
Nice.
game testing.
video game
that's
testing
fun.
for a company called Sound Source Interactive at the time, but then became TDK Media Active. And
And this is right after high school?
this is right after high school, or like right part of that summer thereafter when I finally just like pulled the cord. And they were focused on edutainment titles, like a lot of teaching kids how to type projects that were licensed, or like the Great Valley, was it the Land Before Time Great Valley Racing Adventure for the PlayStation, or the Berenstain Bears Extreme Sports for the Game Boy Color.
Right.
So very
right.
educational in a way.
Yeah, man. We got the Shrek license, and that was big. So we got like the first Shrek Xbox game. It was very trying on my soul.
I bet.
Those years.
Yeah, those aren't, when I think of the games Matt Mercer likes to play.
Yeah, those aren't the games that I would want to play.
Yeah, I was like one of the only testers in that too. So that was like half a summer was just me in a dark cubicle with a Game Boy Color, playing the scrolling Game Boy Color screen for hours, and then like stopping it and going to lunch, and it was like some acid flashback, watching patterns shift from seeing the scrolling screen for too long. But because I was such a big fan of games, I still took a lot of pride in it. So I worked up the chain from there. I became a lead tester for a while, then became QA manager. And I worked on the production side for about 7 or so years. Eventually working on God of War 1 and 2 for a little
Oh
bit.
shit!
Infinity
No
Ward for a while?
fucking
Yeah,
way.
I got headhunted from Sony Santa Monica studio to Infinity Ward and got to work on Call of Duty 2 and the first Modern Warfare.
Oh, dude, that's so cool.
And it was great. It was
It
great.
it paid off
I
in a
met a lot
way.
of great friends there, and learned so much about the development process.
Now those are the games you
But
want to play.
There were a couple personalities at the company that I just didn't mix with, and through those years, I delved and kind of dipped my toe into bits of voiceover.
I was gonna say, did the game testing thing feel like, okay, I'm putting art aside as I'm gonna throw myself into this as a career trajectory because of how you ended up feeling about it. Then you're sort of in this, I don't want to call it purgatory, but you're in this in-between place of doing game testing. Did it feel like I'll do this for now until I figure out what's next, until something hooks me and I figure out what it is I really want to put the passion into?
That was where it started as, but then as I began to take a lot of pride in my work and climb the ranks, then those old thoughts that every kid has in their gamer and they're 10 years old going, I could make a video game. And so I began to think of this possibility of down the road being like a game designer, and I began to develop my own little half concocted game design docs in my home computer, and had these distant dreams of maybe working on that scale. But yeah, it was very much a purgatory that began to become a possible career path. But during that time, I'd done little bits of voiceover Walla projects just through friends of my dad's that he worked with. And
Walla, for a lot of people don't know, is actually a place where a lot of people end up starting. It's it's sort of the background stuff that you hear in movies, games, TV shows, right? That's
when you have all your main characters running through a story, and all of a sudden one of them rushes down the street, and cell phone guy number 3 goes, "Hey, watch where you're going!" You know, that would be something recorded as part of a Walla session, or someone's at a party when you hear all the chatter in the background. That doesn't really make words. You don't really understand what they're saying, but it makes it feel like a full atmosphere. All that's actors doing the Walla for that project, and so that's kind of where I started. And it was just enough of a taste to be like, well, this is fun. This plays into my love of theater. I don't have to be on camera. And I love anime and video games, and these kind of places where I'm starting
Oh, you an anime fan
into.
too, my
Did
boy.
you ever put subliminal messages in there, like Satan will wash over the earth, like it's some ice cream social?
No. I had enough of the Satanic Panic kind of wash off of my love of D&D that I didn't want to rock the boat at all.
You didn't want to like put any backwards masking
right.
into
Yeah.
anything?
But yeah, so I just did that through the years, off and on. And it wasn't until I decided to leave game development, because I was just not happy with the people I was working with to an extent. And I'd gotten enough gigs there. I was like, you know what? I want to try this. Let me just give it a shot. I'm going to go ahead and quit my job with what little money I've saved up. I'm going to downsize my whole life to this tiny little studio apartment and give this like a couple years. That way, at least I know I can put my all into it, give it a proper shot, and if it doesn't work out, I can move forward without regrets and be like, you know what, I tried it, didn't work out. This will be the next avenue I work towards.
But at least I tried this.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of not living with regret. You know, if you feel like you want to try something, do it, but be aware that it might not work out. But I believe it's better to try and fail than it is to spend the rest of your life going, man, what if?
Yeah, what if,
You know,
man?
I think that is a little more toxic on the soul.
It's hard.
It's kind of when I got. Oh, well.
Do you have many regrets?
It's kind of what I got going on with this YouTube channel, man. It's like, I have a lot of moments where I'm like, you know, maybe this is something I shouldn't do, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what, man, give it a shot. Really put some effort into this, because you never know where it could go. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy finding all these different things and reacting to all these different things, and you know, I've learned so much about this community, you know, just from starting, you know, a little over a month ago. So I'm definitely happy that I'm giving this a shot, and you know, who knows what could happen in the future, man. That's I'm working towards big things. I'm trying to make big moves, and I enjoy this, and I think it's better to give it a shot with something you enjoy. So I 100% agree with Matt there, man.
I do, in the sense of like personal relationships in the past. My friend Ian, who I mentioned earlier, I wish I'd stayed in touch with him. It's that classic hackneyed style of like, we're both thick as thieves, and then I meet a girl in high school, and then all of a sudden our friendship rifts, and we grew apart. I still feel kind of bad about that. Yeah, I mean, there are regrets. Every person lives with regret to a certain extent. I think that's why I want to make sure that I live with less.
You have a healthy process to ensure that as years go by, you don't accumulate a lot of those regrets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and failure is a wonderful thing. I've been very aware of the wonderful lessons you learn by failing, and I think it's better to look back at all the attempts you made at certain things and then totally biffed, and laugh about it and learn from those experiences.
Do you have an example of that?
Oh man, trying to become an artist, as I mentioned before, that was a huge nope.
Yeah.
So many years invested in that didn't work out, but I still have experiences that I appreciate from that. I know that at least I got to a point with my art where I'm comfortable changing trajectory and don't regret not pursuing that path.
Right.
And a lot of the skills that I learned through those years have carried over into all other facets of my life.
To what you're doing now, and
Yeah.
right.
So that's part of the reason why I have such a huge love for the art community around Critical Role, is because I get to see all these people that are doing far better work than I could have ever hoped for, and kind of live vicariously through their vision and their body of work.
And you know what it goes through to create something like that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You have such a greater appreciation for it versus someone like me. I can't draw. If I draw a stick figure, it looks offensive, you know. So
It's pretty offensive when you
I'm
draw.
sorry, I'm trying. I've asked for lessons, and you're too expensive.
Hey, man, whenever you want to draw a naked Wolverine or a rogue, you know what I'm saying? Hit up Matt. He's your guy.
Some people know this, but you were big into cosplay for a while too.
Oh yeah.
What time period was that?
That would have been around
I mean, you can tell based off of that.
2002, 2003.
So were you still doing
2002.
game stuff at that point?
You
or
can
did you
tell by the
transition to
picture that we
voiceover?
saw earlier.
Oh no,
where he had
that was
the
that was
white
heavy in
makeup on and
my
stuff.
early QA testing days.
What got you into cosplaying?
Well, I always loved Halloween. Halloween was always an excuse to make a crazy costume, usually a big video game character. I remember like freshman year of high school, I dressed up as Akuma from Street Fighter.
Nice.
I dressed up as Magus twice in high school from Chrono Trigger, so I improved in the costume later. I dressed up as Laguna one year from Final Fantasy VIII. So for me, it was just, I already had kind of an instinct of making these pop culture characters as a costume, but it wasn't until I started going to anime conventions back in the late 90s, I was like, oh, people do this outside of the year. So I wore my Laguna costume to, actually, technically my first cosplay would have been like
My
98.
people.
And you went to those conventions as a fan.
Oh yeah, no,
Because
but
you weren't getting hired to.
oh god, no,
at that
god,
time,
this
'cause
is
you weren't
years
doing
before
anything.
that. So, yeah, like I went to my first Anime Expo in '97, and then '98 I wore my first costume. And that was the Laguna that I wore in the Halloween before. I think that works out right. Might have been the year later.
We have fact checkers.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll
We'll
clarify.
ADR it and make you say
Perfect.
what.
I love it. Me and my friends used to look at the cool pictures that would come out online, and there were all these amazing costumes that a lot of these ladies were making, but there weren't a lot of dudes doing like really good quality cosplay at the time in the early 2000s, and we were really frustrated. It was like this, Cloud Strife cosplayer wearing
Nice.
jeans, and I'd be like, "Come on, dude, come
Put some
on!"
effort in, right?
Yeah, and so we'd get frustrated by it, and so me and like my friend Gavin and my friend Kevin at the time, we decided, you know what, we're gonna go and make new costumes and go to Anime Expo and show that dudes can also do a decent job. And so I'd done some work in theater and doing props and setting pieces and stuff like that, plus the costumes I'd previously made, and we all just made a couple costumes and
Nice.
went to the convention and met all these friends who are both as weirdly
Oh, that's a
awkward
pretty-
and
that's a really
geeky about
good
the stuff as we
cloud,
were. And so that led into a whole new social
cosplay.
circle where I met so many great people, so many great creatives that to this day are still very, very good friends of mine. And so for years, we just began to do, find ways that we could go to this convention across the U.S. and meet up with these friends. And it was, at the time, there wasn't like this huge competitive cosplay scene.
Right.
It was just a bunch of nerds wearing costumes that we made, getting photo shoots together, and then drinking at room parties all weekend.
It was for fun, not
Oh.
recognition.
Exactly, exactly. 'Cause there was
That's Ukitake. I don't know who the guy in the middle is. And then this guy is from Zoolander, the one on the left.
none at the time. We
That
were still
Ukitake
the
one,
bastard
though,
child
is
of the
really
internet.
good.
And yeah, we had a great time, and a lot of my money that I made as a QA tester and then up the echelon was either towards rent, food, games, gas, and then the costume.
Right.
And that's kind of where my spread of cash went for many years there. And at that time also, I think around 2002, I was getting in my most uncomfortable weight. I was around like 235, 240 pounds. And my heavy self-loathing and dysmorphia was getting extremely crippling. And I decided if I wanted to go ahead and do these characters justice, I need to start exercising, something that I've been avoiding my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
And so I joined 24 Hour Fitness and began.
It's
to
crazy
change my
that that's
diet,
what
and it's ironic that it took me.
was his
It took my
motivator.
love of Final Fantasy characters
That's
to
cool.
finally get me to lose weight, and a real nerdy statement here that I hope the internet gets to enjoy now.
To be able to get that.
No, but that's
Look
cool.
just
Yeah,
right.
I couldn't push myself past that line to actually start taking care of myself
Whatever
until I was
whatever gets you,
oh,
whatever gets you there.
being able to properly represent,
As long as it's, a
concepts.
positive thing.
This is too important to me to not feel comfortable in that space.
Had to do it justice.
Yeah,
Wow.
so like in 6 months, I dropped like 70 pounds.
Damn.
Probably not healthy in hindsight.
No, it is
Depends on
not.
how you did it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That helped give me a little more confidence as well. And then meeting these people that were such good people, and so wanting to do groups together, and we'd hang out and talk afterward. And this was in the days of
That is
burgeoning
such
live
a good
journal
job.
and the internet. AOL Instant Messenger was like the way that people communicated.
Right.
Oh man,
That,
AOL, AIM, AOL, and
That
AIM.
sound was like in every household.
Oh yeah.
And
Shoot.
yeah, that became my social clutch, my social circle that I held on to for those years. And so I began to do conventions as a cosplay guest. That was my first kind of
Oh, that's cool.
any sort of step into the avenue of being a guest at these events and speaking at panels and stuff. It was purely for making armor and
Wow.
styling wigs.
Damn,
and,
that's
and sewing
you did a
techniques
great
and
job.
all kinds of weird stuff like that.
It's interesting. I hear you talk about when you met the theater kids and having grown up with not only the internal monologue that you did, but the external stuff, getting bullied and teased about either the way you talked or the way you looked or your scalp, whatever it was. And then you find this like-minded people who go like, oh, fuck all that stuff. And then leapfrog there to the cosplay community, another group of sort of, outcasts or, they're not the
Yeah.
popular kids at school. They're not, maybe in some cases, but it's interesting how we magnetize towards those other people who go like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you've got this thing going on. Well, I've got this thing going on inside. So we're like-minded in that way.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was great to find a space of people that the sense of community of people that were not judgmental at the time. Cosplay's gotten very different in years
It's
recently.
different.
That it's become an industry for some people, and pageantry is a
Competitive.
big thing. It's competitive. But back then, we were just happy to be hanging out and being nerds.
Celebrating the things that made you happy.
Yeah,
Like the Final Fantasy.
yeah, exactly. And that went for many years until I decided to try this career as a voice actor and left my old job. In which case, I had to let my finances become very, very minute.
Not a
in
lot of money for
expenditures.
armor.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I put my cosplay interest to the side and focused on trying this weird lifestyle as a professional actor.
Well, that's also why I always recommend if there's something that you enjoy and there's a club or something that you can do where you can become a part of that community of like-minded people that enjoy the same thing you enjoy, go for it, man. You can meet new people, be introduced to new things, and I mean, look at him. He was able to go and have this whole experience where he was working with people and creating costumes, and opened up his opportunity to be there as a cosplay guest at a convention. Like, you never know what can happen, and I always think that it's just great to be able to find like-minded people that enjoy the same thing you enjoy in general, man. I really, really recommend it, especially nowadays. It's like so easy to find like a club or something like that. So if there's something that's kind of like niche, um, you know, and there's a club for it that you enjoy, go for it, man. Do it. I, I highly recommend it. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. Um, you know what? Where are we at? We're 52 minutes in right now. All right, so I'm gonna give it a pause for now, cause what time is it? Yeah, I gotta edit this bad boy down, this part down, and then I gotta get ready for work. So, um, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this reaction. If there's anything I missed, anything you want to add on to this, let me know. Give it a like, give it a share. Feedback. If you're seeing this on Twitter, retweet it, all that stuff. And yeah, man, I will see you guys in the next part. Just thank you for watching, and just thank you for your support. And we'll pick up with Cannibal Kirby over here, man. But you have a good morning, afternoon, or night, and I will see you guys in the next part. Peace.